Talks with Loren. This is a show we talk about emerging trends in the data world to enable people to stay informed. Now, in today's episode, we're going to discuss about how data is applicable in the renewable energy sector. With SDG Goal 7 in mind of ensuring clean and affordable energy, data is needed to drive decision making and also to ensure sustainability. With me today is a guest who understands this topic in depth, and I'd like to welcome her to introduce herself. Karibu.
Thank you, Loren, and I'm really glad to be here at Data Talks and to share what I know about data in energy. So to introduce myself, I am Michelle Wandera. I've worked for more than 13 years in different industries, and now I find myself in the energy space. And specifically where I'm in energy is because for me, my work needs to make sense. It needs to create impact to the community that we are serving, and that is why I am in energy currently.
So, Michelle, what are some of the applicable areas in which data can be used in the renewable energy space?
Okay, that's a really good question. And first of all, we know that data is, in my opinion, one of the most valuable resources currently in the world as we are. Yeah. And as I have in my career, in my professional space, I've used data in several areas in my career. But now specifically for energy, we see that data is used in various aspects in the energy space. So if I am an IPP where I'm looking to develop, for example, a greenfield project, then how am I going to use data? If I want, for example, a hydro project or a solar project, then I need to be able to understand the hydrology of a specific river. I'll be able to understand the solar irradiance for a solar project. So all these things is data which has been collected over a period of time for me to be able to understand if this area of this particular resource will be good for me to be able to build my power plant.
Michelle, you mentioned IPP. So what's that in for the people who are not in energy?
Yeah. So how is data used in the energy space? So first of all, as an IPP stands for Independent Power Producer. So I would want to know if I am working on a greenfield project and I want to construct a power plant from the beginning, then I need to be able to understand the kind of resource and where I'm going to construct this power plant. So if it's a hydro, I need to understand the hydrology of the river and how it's been over the last few years. So of course this is data.
Yes.
When it's a solar project, then I'm looking at the solar irradiance and different aspects of solar, the latitude, the geographical aspects. So whether this will be a suitable site for me to build a solar plant. So this is how, in terms of looking for a resource in the greenfield space, how I'm going to use data. Then moving from there on, of course, we also have brownfield projects where you're now looking into buying an existing power plant. So how do I invest into it? Then, of course, definitely I do need data. I need to understand how has this resource been performing over the last few years. Okay. What has been the revenue? How has been the consumption? How is the history of the off-taker? Do we pay? So all this is data in terms of in the energy space. So if I am an IPP, then I would use data in that space. So I'm also looking at it from a mini grid perspective. So for me to be able to, for example, manage the mini grids effectively, then I also need data to be able to manage these mini grids effectively. And I don't want to jump in front ahead. So from a mini grid space, and then we also have distributed energy resources, for example, for the solars, for the electric vehicles, for the solar panels, electric vehicles, solar TVs, solar radios, solar mobile. So all these where this is now the retail space where we have several off-grid solutions. Yes. So this is also, you definitely need data for you to be able to track for example, your market, to understand the market dynamics, the market dynamics, you're able to understand who your customers are, where you've put, who has your resource, who has your products, how are they using the products. And so this is also how data is used in energy. And on top of all that, we also need to understand the impact of the work that you're doing. So energy is also used, data is also used in measuring the impact of the kind of work that you're doing.
Okay.
So that is one aspect, Loren.
Yes.
It is really huge
Yes.
because now I'm talking about it. I've spoken about the investment bit,
Yes.
talking about the retail bit, but there's also the bit where, in terms of, even as I look at for example, going into construction, there are different EPCs who are coming to bid for this, for for me to bid, for example, the IPPs, for them to be given the tender to construct these different projects.
Yeah.
So how are they going to come in? Me as an IPP, of course, I need to look at their data in terms of their financials, in terms of their reputation, in terms of their customer, in terms of their reputation, in terms of their financials, in terms of their technology they are using. So all this, of course, is still data.
Right.
And then now on to one of the biggest things which I'm really proud of, one of the projects which I was able to implement using data in business analytics. So now you are operating a power plant. How am I going to leverage this data and use this data so that I can be able to make decisions, like event management? So how am I supposed to use this data?
Yeah.
So using data analytics, data visuals, for me to be able to give the right data to the different management, the different stakeholders, so that they can be able to leverage this data and make the right decisions for the organization. So look at a power plant, how much is it producing, why is it producing the way it's producing, how has it been producing over the last few years, what has been the factors, then understanding the full P&L, the assets which are managed. So definitely data is used in this aspect. So data has been used from development, it's been used to construction, it's been used in operations. Yes, and then now, and the other aspect that I've spoken about.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Michelle, in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities that are out here in the energy sector by leveraging data, one other way in which someone can do this is by ensuring access and equity, which is part also of the SDG goals. So in terms of that, what does this mean in the energy space, and how can we use data to ensure access and equity to all people?
So thanks, Loren, for the question. And just to emphasize further on this is the fact that, I mean, we are all in Africa, we are all in sub-Saharan Africa. We do understand that that most places, if we're not in an urban area, then there's no electricity, and reliable electricity for that matter.
Yes.
So how do we leverage data to be able to just solve this problem? Through data, we'll be able to know which areas do not have electricity, which pockets do not have electricity, and then through this, then we'll be able to have deliberate measures to be able to penetrate these different areas. And like we all know, once there's energy, then it catalyzes more economic growth, because we're able to do business. It also has a ripple effect on the other SDGs, such as education, such as zero poverty. So there's definitely a case for energy, and a case to ensure that there's energy security and equitable energy for most of the population in Africa.
Okay, and actually back to your initial point where you were mentioning about knowing your customers, through data. Then through knowing your customers, you can even be able to tell how many people are buying solar products, how many people are not buying solar products, which particular areas, and that can also be impactful in terms of driving decisions into ensuring that equity, because then if you know only a specific area are relying on solar products for energy, then it means something has to be done about that to ensure that that is not only their reliability source, right?
Yes, and just to also reiterate on your point on knowing your customer, knowing, understanding why. For example, it could just be an issue of accessibility.
Right.
You find that, yes, I do want to have, for example, a solar fridge, I do want to have solar TV, I do want to have solar mobile electricity, but I do not have the resources for me to be able to access this. So how as different companies come in and just help the population be able to have access to this. You see, now this is where you come into financing. Like, there are very many companies, innovative companies, who are even looking at financing products, these products, giving their customers financing options. So you get a product, for example, you get a TV, you get solar fitted, and then you pay it over a period of time. So of course this becomes sustainable for the business, and you, even as and the customers also have access to electricity. So that is also a way that which data is also really helping increase energy equity in Africa. And
So in terms of another point, still in regards to opportunity, I will look at it also in regards to governance.
Okay.
So what do you think about that bit?
Yeah, so in terms of, so of course we know that in the energy space it is highly regulated, that's the first thing. And because there are several players who play in this space. So of course, as much as I am, for example, an IPP, I stand as an IPP, I do have other stakeholders who I need to report to.
Yes.
So for example, I do have my lenders who need their reports. I do have the regulatory bodies who need their reports.
Okay.
I do have the shareholders, the owners of the companies, the investors who also need their reports. So data, this is an opportunity. Data and data analytics can be optimized so that you can streamline reporting, streamline reporting requirements,
For sure.
and also data management, because now when you're managing your data actively and consciously, then you're able to manage, if you're managing it consciously and effectively, then you're able to have sufficient data for all your different regulatory bodies and regulatory requirements.
Okay.
Thanks.
What other opportunity do you think is out there that people can leverage data for?
So I can't overemphasize the opportunity for data in energy. As in, I believe we could talk for the whole afternoon if we had the chance. Yes, but there are key aspects which I could think about would be like predictive maintenance for the power plants.
Okay.
Once you're using data because you've collected data over time, then you're able to predict when you need to actively maintain when you need to maintain your power plants, which is important.
Yes.
And so of course now you don't have downtime. You're able to be reliable and to produce electricity reliably.
Yeah.
Then another point I'd look at would also be when you're looking into investing, for example, also the resilience of the grid, understanding how the grid is performing. For example, like today we have a nationwide power cut,
right?
but that's just an outlier. But you see, once you're able to look at the grid and understand how the grid is performing, what are the grid outages, then it can be able to also help inform you on how you as an IPP, whether or not this would be connected to this grid would make sense.
Yes.
And even how are you going to mitigate this risk, in terms of grid outages. So
Okay, back to your point on predictive maintenance. Okay, so for you to gather data over time, so that you are able to predict the outcomes, because of course for predictive you need historical data.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
So that poses a challenge, such that probably if I'm independent power producer, IPP, I want to invest. I want that historical data for me to know what's in it for in the future for me. So getting that data could be a challenge, right? Or are there any?
So in terms of from my experience in data, first of all, one thing that we need to appreciate is if your data is not reliable, then definitely the decisions you're making are not going to be reliable.
For sure.
So that's one thing that you need to emphasize on the reliability of your data. Your data needs to be reliable. That everyone knows when whatever is coming from this, for example, if we input a specific system, it's actually, I can rely on this data.
Yes.
So that definitely is a challenge, and it will definitely need resources and technical, not just financial resources, but also technical know-how.
Yes.
And having the right also human resources to be able to just understand, the data and to be able to understand the systems, and also to be able to invest in the systems.
Yes.
So that way, then you're able to take in your data more reliably.
Right.
Yes. So to conclude, I'd really like to emphasize the importance of data. because without data, then you don't make the right decisions. Without the right decisions, then of course this eats into the health of the company. So I really want to overemphasize because the importance of data to any organization, the importance of reliable data, and why it's important to invest in the right systems, in the right resources for you to be able to get the right data to make the right decisions. And of course, in energy being a very, very dynamic sector, energy, and for us to achieve energy equity, we need all types of innovations which are also part of the data that we get. And of course, the energy industry being very dynamic and being very ripe for investment, then we all need to come together and use all the available resources that we have, and that we can leverage on for us to be able to achieve energy equity for the entire Africa. And definitely catch Loren on Data Talks and subscribe to her channel. Definitely, I've learned a lot from the previous episodes, and I'm continuing to learning, and I really do want her to continue with the work that she's doing in helping inform the public on the importance of data.
Oh, thank you, Michelle, so much for the kind words. I really appreciate you joining us today in helping us understand this further. I'd like to thank everyone who has reached this far in the episode. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've learned something, and see you on the next. Bye.